Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Halton Hills housing update. So this week felt kind of good. Overall, the numbers are not, really that much different than last week, but it felt like some people were coming out of the woodworks. The inventory that is available is decent, and I just felt this kind of shift in maybe real estate optimism. So let's take a look at the numbers, and some of them are kind of signs of good news. So let's see what's happening out there. So in Georgetown last week, we had 8 properties sell, which was the same as the previous week. Some good news for the higher end price point is 3 of those were over $1 million. So we saw some movement in the price points that have been kind of quiet. So the remaining 5 were all under 800,000, and 2 of those sold over asking. Again, we're not seeing significantly over asking, like $1,000, $5,000 maybe. When we see over asking, we typically are safe to assume majority of the time that the property was bid on by more than one buyer. So I find this kind of interesting. So we technically had 14 new properties list last week. Of those, 7 of them were relisted, so previously on the market, and they have reduced their prices. Majority of those, of course, being over that 900,000 price point. But what that means is our sales outpaced our actual new listings. So there were 7 new properties introduced to the market, and we had 8 sales. So that is a shift from the previous few weeks, and that maybe is some good news on inventory maybe leveling out and buyers resuming their searches in the market. So in Acton this week, much like the previous weeks, we're just kind of coasting there. We have 2 new listings and 2 sales. So things are just kind of moving along, not crazy rapid, but we're also not seeing inventory skyrocketing. So the same story goes for Glen Williams, Limehouse, and Rural as the previous weeks. We have had no sales in those areas. We did have 1 new property list in Limehouse and 3 new Rural properties. So that Rural inventory is continuing to climb. So let's look at active properties this week. In Georgetown, our numbers are down slightly to 69 active listings. The majority of those are still over that 900,000 price point, but there are some good properties on the market under 750,000. Stuff that we could never have touched 8 weeks ago is just sitting on the market. There's a lot of bungalows, which is very rare to see those not getting scooped up. And so I think that some people, and this is how I kind of felt in the last week, are looking at this and are thinking, this might be an opportunity for me to buy and not have to compete in all the madness. So I do think we're gonna start seeing this inventory start to get eaten up a little bit. In Acton this week, we still had 19 active listings, so the same as it's been. In Glen Williams, we have 7 active listings still, and I looked back and we have had 7 active listings there since March the 10th. So typically Glen Williams has very low inventory. Stuff moves pretty quickly in that area. So the fact that nothing is sold in 7 weeks there is definitely reflective of what is happening in Georgetown. Limehouse, we have 3 active listings. And as I said, rural inventory is definitely climbing. We are up to 28 active listings. When I looked at the March 10th numbers as well on rural, we were at 21. So not much has moved there, and the numbers continue to climb. So next week, I'm going to review the April stats, and they are not pretty. I looked at the first 3 weeks of April, and our average price point is significantly down because the lower price point seems to be the only thing that's really moving, and the number of units that have sold is significantly lower. So I think this April is I think the numbers are going to be atrocious. But I do, like I said, I just feel like there's this weird sense of turn happening and some confidence coming back to the market. So I feel optimistic as our COVID cases go down. Hopefully our sales will continue to go back up to a normal pace. We have a lot of sellers in a position that they need to sell. And I do think this is a nice opportunity for buyers where the market is a little bit more quiet, that they can maybe enter the market and not be, spending what they deem to be too much. So make sure you come back next week so I can review what happened in April. So if you've been following these market updates and even just what I touched on, you know that those numbers are not going to look good, but I don't think it's going to be reflective of how 2020 ends. So let's see what this week brings. Hopefully the last 2 weeks have sort of been a turning point and we are going to start to see things feel a little bit more normal. So have a great week, everyone. See you next Tuesday.